The white shirt of Real Madrid, worn by some of the game's most magical names, representing one of the biggest and most successful football clubs in the world. Today their fame is self-perpetuating, but it is due in no small part to the players of the 50s and 60s, players who were champions of Europe for 5 consecutive years. The Santiago Bernabeu, Real Madrid's home since December 1947. It is one of football's most famous stadiums, housing one of its most famous teams. But this was not always so.
Many fans won't know this, but Real Madrid were on the verge of going down to the second division. For a joke, the fans at the time used to say we have a first division stadium and a second division team.
In 1955, the stadium was renamed in honor of the club president at the time, Santiago Bernabeu Yeste, and a dynasty was born.
Santiago Bernabeu was a really incredible president. He had an extraordinary talent, an incredible vision for signing quality players.
Real Madrid possessed a genius in the shape of its president. He saw the chance to create a great team.
A former striker and manager of the club, Bernabeu became president in 1943, and arguably his biggest contribution was the acquisition of one particular player, Alfredo Di Stefano.
I was going to play in Europe, and I was all set to join Barcelona for certain, because they'd spoken to me first. But circumstances changed, and I signed for Real Madrid.
In 1953, the highly rated Argentine was playing for Colombian club Millonarios. A tug-of-war with Barcelona ensued, but Bernabeu's persistence eventually won through.
I was lucky enough to play in a good team. So the Arrow, that's my nickname, had arrived. And when we made new signings, we made up a very good, very strong side.
A year later, Real Madrid won their first Spanish league title for 21 seasons. Los Blancos were on the rise, and Di Stefano was the central figure.
He was a striker, a midfielder, and a defender. Technically, he was world-class, and the speed he had was impressive. And he just loved scoring goals.
Francisco Gento had also arrived from Racing Santander. The winger would become another club legend.
Paco Gento was our quickest player. When a defender had to mark him, he just couldn't. When Gento was in full flow, he'd stop for half a metre. So would the defender, and then he'd be off again.
The league title was retained in 1955, but during the campaign, Uruguayan coach Enrique Fernandez resigned and was replaced by Jose Villalonga.
Villalonga was a coach when I joined Madrid. He was a military man and a fitness trainer.
In 1955, Real Madrid contested the Latin Cup, a tournament for the champions of Spain, France, Italy, and Portugal. They met French club Stade de Reims in the final in Paris. Argentine striker Hector Real scored both goals in a 2-0 win to claim the trophy for Real. A bigger prize, though, lay ahead.
The presidents of several clubs held a meeting with the editorial department of the newspaper L'Équipe, which is based in Paris. In that meeting, they decided that instead of the Latin Cup being contested by just 1, 2, 3 or 4 teams, all teams in Europe should take part, and that's when it was born.
The tournament was named the European Champion Clubs Cup and began in 1955. Real Madrid reached the semi-finals and faced Milan of Italy.
Real Madrid really went for it. Our game was based on hard work and we were a solid team. And we were always convinced we would win.
Such confidence helped Madrid to defeat the formidable Italians 5-4 over 2 legs, including this 4-2 home victory in front of 130,000. So Real Madrid would contest the inaugural European Cup final on the 13th of June 1956 against familiar foes Stade de Reims at the Parc des Princes, scene of their Latin Cup triumph the year before. Madrid fell 2 goals behind inside the first 10 minutes, but Stefano and then Real established parity before the break. Second half strikes from Marquitos and Real again ultimately produced a 4-3 victory. History had been made. Real Madrid were, officially, the first champions of Europe.
The repercussions of such a sporting success had an influence on the social and economic aspects of a country led by Franco's dictatorship. It was hugely important in all aspects and across the whole of Spain.
Nowhere more so than back in the Spanish capital, where a hero's welcome awaited.
People were lining the street from the airport, waiting for us. We were driven past the fans in open-top cars, and they applauded us.
Santisteban helped Madrid defeat Manchester United 5-3 on aggregate in the semi-finals of the European Cup, and the 1957 final would be held in reassuring surroundings. The Santiago Bernabeu hosted the final that year. Home advantage ensured the holders were favourites to defend their title against Fiorentina of Italy.
Real Madrid couldn't cope with the demand for tickets, and Mingote, a great caricaturist who died recently, sketched a wizard saying, "Ask me for anything you want, apart from a ticket for Real Madrid and Fiorentina."
Spanish head of state Francisco Franco was among a crowd of 124,000. The game remained goalless until half-time, despite the holders' best efforts. But with 20 minutes remaining, Real Madrid's Enrique Mateos was fouled in the penalty area. Alfredo Di Stefano made expected use of the resulting penalty. With Italian resistance finally broken, Paco Gento doubled the advantage. And watching from the stands, a new signing was impressed.
I think the result was very positive and fully deserved. At the same time, it left an impression on me because I realized I joined a team that was full of winners. So much so, I realized I'd have to suffer and put in some hard work to justify my signing. Well, things turned out well, and I'm still here.
That same season, Madrid regained their Spanish league title and were hosts to the final edition of the Latin Cup. They overpowered Milan 5-1 in their semi-final, with Gento scoring a hat-trick. In the final, they met Portuguese champions Benfica. Di Stefano scored the only goal.
At
the
time, it was an important tournament, but only the Latin countries took part in it. And it was a battle because Real Madrid were desperate to win it, and the rest wanted to beat us. So there was a rivalry and a chance to be the best.
But shortly afterwards, manager Jose Villalonga fell out with Bernabeu, who replaced him with the Argentine Luis Carniglia from the French champions Nice. The following season, after demolishing Belgian champions Antwerp 8-1 over 2 legs, Madrid eliminated Sevilla 10-2 on aggregate in the quarter-finals, including this 8-0 annihilation at the Bernabeu.
We won 8-0, playing superbly, and we had some fantastic players. It was a game never to be forgotten because of what it stood for, with a view to the future. It gave us the confidence to keep on going.
Madrid confronted Milan in the European Cup final in Brussels shortly after keeping their Spanish league title. 4 goals were shared over 90 minutes. For the first time, the European Cup would be decided in extra time.
We won 3-2 after extra time, thanks to a goal by Hento. It was an end-to-end game and could have been won by either side.
It was another of those satisfying moments which we enjoyed on a regular basis. But Milan could easily have beaten us as well.
Ferenc Puskás came to Real Madrid, aged 31, and was 12 kilos overweight. The coach, Luis Carniglia, saw him and told Santiago Bernabeu and Antonio Calderon, the club treasurer, "He's a lost cause, so I'm not picking him." Bernabeu replied, "Your job is to get him fit, make him lose weight. That's what you have to do. And don't mention the subject to me again. We want him."
He spent 3 months here without playing. He trained until he eventually got in the team. As soon as he did, he showed his talent and his reputation as a top-class player.
Everybody said he was overweight, carrying excess. Well, from being a fatty, he turned out to be a phenomenon. He was a key player for our team and someone who'd shoot from a long way out, 30 to 35 meters, and score.
With Puskás excelling, Real Madrid reached the semi-finals of the European Cup for the 4th successive season. Their president had been a motivator. They met local rivals Atletico Madrid in the semi-final, which finished 2-2 on aggregate. A playoff was held in neutral Zaragoza.
It was a rivalry between 2 teams from Madrid. Each wanted the bragging rights that were at stake. Neither wanted to lose face, especially because they were up against a team from the same city.
With the game level at 1-1, Puskás' goal just before half-time settled the tie.
The feeling was one of complete relief because the pressure of having to win was so strong that you were thinking about the game 2 weeks in advance. Once it was played and we got through, we took a rest mentally, and that allowed us to prepare ourselves for another final.
This time Madrid travelled to Stuttgart in West Germany, where they once again met old adversaries, Reims.
A healthy but friendly rivalry had been established between Reims and Real Madrid. But Real Madrid were the finished article. We worked hard and we were confident we'd win. There was never any overconfidence, though.
4 years earlier, Madrid had been 2 down after 10 minutes against the same opponents. This time, however, Enrique Mateos put Madrid ahead in the first minute. Alfredo Di Stefano doubled the lead in the second half to ensure the trophy stayed at the Bernabeu, the biggest possible consolation for relinquishing the league title to arch-rivals Barcelona.
It sunk in that we'd won the trophy 4 years running, but we never thought we'd have the chance to win a 5th.
Albeit with a new manager, former captain Miguel Muñoz had been appointed. The decision was questioned in some quarters, since he had retired from playing only the season before.
In the meeting they had in Alfredo de Stefano's house, Santiago Bernabeu asked him, "What do you think if Miguel Munoz took charge of the team?" He replied, "Santiago, you never know. He's a homegrown product, someone who's played for the club, so it's worth a try."
Despite managerial changes, Madrid once again qualified for the semi-finals of the European Cup, scoring 18 goals in the 2 ties that took them there. Awaiting them were the reigning Spanish champions and their deadliest rivals.
I made my debut against Barcelona. I hadn't played yet for Real Madrid. How did I feel? Of course I was nervous, but I was happy because, after all, it was a European Cup semi-final against Barcelona.
2 goals from Di Stefano and 1 from Puskas gave Madrid a 3-1 win in the first leg, played at home.
It was hard for us, but I do think that we had the best team in the world, by a long way, and that's what the results showed.
At the Camp Nou, Munoz looked on as his all-conquering players won the second leg by the same scoreline to reach the final for the 5th year in a row.
It seemed that everyone wanted us to lose. Well, not the Madrid supporters, but the rest were really desperate for us to lose so that our winning streak would finally come to an end.
The 5th European Cup final was to be played in Glasgow. Madrid's challengers would be Eintracht Frankfurt of West Germany, a team that had slaughtered Rangers of Scotland 12-4 on aggregate in their semi-final.
I think it was the game in which we were under the greatest pressure. We were getting on a bit. We were getting older, and the Germans were younger than us. They'd just enjoyed a great season, so they arrived convinced that they would beat us.
Real Madrid's team that day will never be forgotten. They had a 3-man backline and 2 designated midfielders. Di Stefano, deployed just behind the front pair of Del Sol and Puskas, surged ceaselessly up and down the field, but it was the Germans who took the initiative.
They took the lead with a move in my area of the pitch. The right winger made a run. From there, we began to think, we're 1 behind and we'd better get our act together. These are extremely dangerous.
The Germans scored first and were leading 1-0. Then one of their shots hit the post, and that would have put them 2 up. But in the end, we fought back. And we went on to score all those goals against them.
That goal cost them the title. We reacted and just hammered them, scoring 1 goal after another, and it could have been more.
Di Stefano and Puskas both scored twice as Real Madrid forged a 4-1 lead.
It wasn't easy. They weren't a team with a big reputation, but they were like any German team. We had to get at them because we knew they never gave up. We had a big lead, but that aside, what we really wanted was to humiliate them.
They did that all right and enthralled the football world. Puskas scored 4, Di Stefano 3. The result, Real Madrid 7, Eintracht Frankfurt 3.
He scored 4, I scored a hat-trick. He beat me by 1. He was amazing. That game's gone down in history because 10 goals were scored, 7-3 in a final. And that's a lot of goals.
I don't think 10 goals will be scored ever again in the final of a European Cup. I really don't. Nothing's impossible in football, apart from that.
As European champions, Real Madrid then met the champions of South America, Peñarol of Uruguay, in the inaugural Intercontinental Cup.
At that time, we had the responsibility of representing Real Madrid, our team, and the added pressure of representing a continent, not just Spain, but a continent, Europe.
The first leg in Montevideo finished goalless, but the second leg in Madrid was a quite different story.
After 10 minutes, we were winning 3-0, and we also hit the post 3 times. That told us that we were going to win the game. We won, and won convincingly.
5-1 in fact, a result that made Real Madrid football's first club world champions.
It proved that we were the best team in the world. We had a fantastic team. But we were all getting older. Alfredo was getting older. Others were as well.
Of course, even their glory had to fade. The following season, Barcelona extracted revenge by eliminating the 5-time champions 4-3 on aggregate in the first round. But refereeing decisions in the second leg made it a bitter exit.
An English friend of ours did us no favours at all. He made mistakes in all his decisions. That's the truth. But that's football for you. I think it was decided behind the scenes that Real Madrid shouldn't win another European Cup. That was the case. So there was definitely something going on.
We knew then that the cycle was over.
It was the end of an era, but Real Madrid's deeds continued to reverberate through the lore of the game. From 1954 to 1966, they were crowned Spanish champions 9 times, but even these titles were overshadowed by their 5 consecutive European Cups, and in 1966 they won the trophy for the 6th time.
We provided excitement for the whole country because we saw Spain united after the problems the country had suffered back then.
There was none of that jealousy that generally seems to exist in teams, like I think I'm better than you, or you think you're better than him. No, not at all. Every single one of us was aware of our own individual abilities and those of our teammates.
I was the eldest of them all. But there were lots of leaders in the team. You don't get anywhere with just one leader. We had a leader in defence, one in midfield, and one up front.
It's only now that you realise what impact playing in that final has had. It's only now you become aware that winning the European Cup is the ultimate.
Sadly, most of them are no longer with us, but their achievements will live as long as football. Real Madrid, the archetypal champions.